Have you ever wondered whether those cake mix hacks really make a difference? You know what I mean, right? The tweaks you can make to a box mix to make it taste a little bit more like homemade. Well, today I'm going to put that to the test. I made 2 cakes side by side. One straight from the box. The other, I just made a few simple upgrades to try to make the cake taste a little bit more like homemade. Will it make a difference? Let's find out. Now, there are a few things I did the same for both cakes. I used the same mix. Let's see, this is Duncan Hines Devil's Food Cake Mix. Purposely exactly the same. I also used the same pans. These are Fat Daddy-O brand pans, my favorite. And I made a 3-layer cake in both cases. Halfway through it, I thought, why am I not making a 2-layer cake? But I started out with 3 and I just had to continue on. So both cakes are 3 layers. And the way I prepped these pans, it was the same. Even though the box mix tells you to use Pam baking spray, and this is a great spray, by the way, and I do use it many times with my cakes, but the reason it's perfect for baking is it has flour in this spray. However, these are chocolate cakes, and so I like, instead of flour, I like to use cocoa powder, because then you don't have white flour on top of a chocolate cake. You know what I mean? It's an aesthetic thing. So I use butter. I also use parchment paper. And then I dust it with cocoa instead of the flour. It's just kind of a nice extra touch of chocolate flavor. You know, you can never have too much chocolate in a chocolate cake as far as I'm concerned. Now, the other detail is that I use these cake baking strips. These are kind of fabric strips that you soak in water, wrap around your pan after they're wet. And what this does is help to conduct the heat in a way to even out the baking of your layer. The reason I do this is if you've ever made a cake, any kind of cake, in a layer pan like this, without the strips, for me anyway, they always bake up in a dome shape. And then what you need to do is either, basically when you start stacking them, you end up filling in that dome with a ton of frosting. And so in between your layers, you have like a big layer of frosting on the edges and a tiny bit in the middle, or you level it off. And when you level it off, you're basically shaving off that dome to make a flat surface. And to me, that's just throwing away perfectly good cake. So I'd rather get my cake to bake up in a flat layer and then just go from there. Let's see, and I baked both cakes at the same time and temperature. I also bake them the day before, the day I want them, and then I frost them the next day. That way I'm certain I have enough time for them to cool. I don't have to worry about, are they still warm? I'm not rushed. So that's just my habit. I bake them day 1, I frost them day 2, and that's how I always make my cakes that way. So let's talk about how I made these cakes. Cake number 1, again, straight from the box. I used water, oil, and eggs. Exactly according to the directions, mix up the batter, pour it into the pans, and bake them. Because the box does not really have directions for 3-layer cakes, what I do is I just take the 2-layer directions and bake at the minimum amount. But then you, of course, cool them in the pan. I'll just show you how I like to flip these over. So when they've cooled in the pan for, I think it's 5 or 10 minutes, I like to invert like this, place the cooling rack on top first, and then flip the whole thing over. and then take off that pan, and you can remove that parchment paper, of course. And then one more thing, simply because I've been a lifelong pet owner, I'm in the habit of recovering each of these layers with the pan for a while it continues to cool, because it's the only way to keep my pets away from the cakes. But then I have to, of course, make cake number 2. This one did have the hacks applied. So first, instead of oil, I used melted butter. Instead of water, I used brewed coffee. I also added some Greek yogurt and an extra egg. Other than that, you still mix up the batter the same, although you can tell this batter looks different. It's a little bit thicker. Bake it up. I do test to make sure that they're done with a toothpick, and then stack them up and let them cool for tomorrow. And then I did frost these this morning, and what you will see, here's one, and here's the other. I wish I could pick them up at the same time, but I really don't think I can. They're awfully heavy. Wait, here we go. As you can see, I did it. One is frosted with classic buttercream frosting, and the other is a chocolate buttercream frosting. I'm the only person who knows which one's which, and we're going to put this to a taste test to see if we can tell a difference between these two cakes. One thing you're going to notice right away is one looks taller than the other, but other than that, what it really comes down to is taste and texture. So let's see how these turn out. Yes, we just need one more shot of these gorgeous cakes side by side before I cut into them. And no, I don't claim to be any great decorator. I make great frosting, but I don't spend a whole lot of time with making them look a certain way. But each person, of course, had to have one piece of each for a side-by-side comparison of the taste and texture of these delicious cakes. And yes, I did my part. Okay, so I'm this far into these two pieces of cake, and I have to tell you, we've really put in the work on this, okay? Here is the big reveal. The taller cake is the one that I made straight from the box. I put chocolate frosting, chocolate buttercream frosting, I should say, on these layers. The white/vanilla buttercream is what I used for the cake mix I made with the hacks applied. Both were incredibly delicious. We both tried these. These are absolutely delicious cakes. For me, I will say that the cake made with the hacks applied, that one had a little bit more, it was moister for sure. I think the flavor's pretty darn close. As the birthday boy of the house pointed out to me, the frosting is so darn good, it pretty much compensates for any lack in either of the cakes. I also feel like, yeah, a good buttercream frosting will make up for any box cake mix anytime. But honestly, it's like I say, it's really close. Both are great, absolutely delicious, and now either fortunately or unfortunately, however you care to look at it, we have 2 cakes to eat up. And I think we're up for the job. So here we go. Thanks for watching. And have a great day. Wait, did you eat all of that?
Uh-huh.